And welcome to the Misrolling podcast. My name, as usual, is Jacob Staten, and as usual, I'm joined by JJ Armstrong. JJ, how the devil are you?
Well, as usual, Jacob, which is uncommon as a Forest fan. Usually, I'm getting used to it now. I'm feeling fantastic after an unbeaten start to the season because I don't know if you heard, but we've just beaten Liverpool. And I would like to take this brief moment to say, I know we're probably the last podcast to do this, to talk about the game. We are a bit late. However, if you're listening to this, it's because you can't get bored of hearing Forest fans talking about beating Liverpool for the first time since 1969. Jacob, how are you? Sorry, at Anfield for the first time since 1969. How are you, Jacob?
I'm sensational, thank you. Yeah, it seemed the most wild thing about that stat is when you consider that Brian Clough didn't beat them up there. That is, I know we've beaten them over 2 legs in Europe and stuff like that. But yeah, that was the oddest thing. Health wise, I'm very well, thank you for asking. We sit here on a dusk on a Tuesday night. Yeah, very well, mate. What more can you ask for?
You better soak them up now while you can, because next year, Tuesday nights are going to get very busy for Nottingham Forest fans. I tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. I was actually checking the scores earlier. I think Villa are winning 2-0 currently away at Young Boys. That could be us.
It could be us. Let's not get too carried away, though. Let's not get too carried away.
So, yeah, into the game. I just think, starting lineup, saw a couple of changes, and I think it threw everyone out, which when you look at it in hindsight, when, the novelty of hindsight, it looks like a perfect plan because you can see exactly what he was trying to do. But pre-game, trying to figure out where all those central midfielders were going to play. So what he did was he put Alex Moreno in for Nico Williams with Olayin and moving to right back. And then Nico Dominguez and James Ward-Prowse for Anthony Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi. There were many schools of thought between us around what was actually going to happen. I think more surprisingly was we didn't make a move to a back five. I wouldn't have been surprised by that. And then thinking logically, you go, well, Nico Dominguez actually spent quite a bit of time playing right wing. Or right attacking midfield role, didn't he? Last season, Morgan Gibbs-white moves further forward, and Elliot Anderson can play on the wing. So it's probably not too surprising in the end. But when you look at that, you think it's a back four and kind of 6 central midfielders behind Chris Wood. You're going, oh.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised to see that we didn't start with a back five, because I think that was what everyone theorized before could be an option.
Yep.
Obviously, Bolly probably quite essential to that, because your alternative options are, is it Morato, the new guy, who played very well when he came on, by the way, or Omobamidele? Omobamidele's obviously got more Premier League experience, but it's still quite limited. And for the first game to be thrown in at Anfield is probably quite a daunting task. So I'm unsure as to whether we ever planned to do a back five with Bolly's inclusion, but regardless, I did think we'd see it. Just because I typically associate trying to get anything in this type of game with just being as defensive as possible.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to add, I think it might be worth pointing out that Willy Bolly wasn't actually on the bench.
Yeah, I think he was injured, wasn't he?
Yeah, so maybe that influenced the tactical change.
Yeah, and then obviously, as you mentioned, the midfield was flooded, and no Sangare, or also not on the bench. I think it's rumoured that he's out for 3 months. Obviously, no Danilo. A debut in a Forest shirt for Ward-Prowse. Yates starting. It's a system we've not seen before, and my initial thought, without hindsight, was I think we're going to lose a midfield battle here, which I don't think I could have been any more wrong if I tried, as we will go on to talk about in the game, and the midfield in particular. But we have the beauty of hindsight now. We were clearly set up to play against Liverpool. This isn't a system that we've adopted so far. It's a tactical masterclass, I think, when you look at it on the surface of things. And I think it shows real progress for Forest that we've now got pretty strong, depth across the board, because you've got no Danilo, you've got no Sangare, but that midfield is still strong. You've got no Alanga, you've got no Hudson-Odoi, you've got no Silva, or even Sosa wasn't even on the bench, but it still looks strong. They can still come off the bench to make an impact. You've got no Nico Williams, who has typically been a starter. We've really got a strong squad now, and I think that's starting to show. And we'll go on to talk about the game, but if we can get the key people ticking, I think we're in for a right treat this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, overall, a tactical masterclass, absolutely. I think that, there were elements of luck. There was, Luis Diaz hit the post. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Liverpool were far more dominant in the game, and all the stats, like, so 70% possession, nearly three times as many shots. Quick maths, nearly 7 times as many touches in our box as we had in theirs. I hate XG police and all that kind of thing, but let's not. In my opinion, Liverpool were clearly dominant, and had we lost that match, I don't think anybody would have grumbled. But the decision to flood the midfield with central midfielders, I actually think central midfield is probably one of the places that Liverpool are weakest. Not to say it's a weak midfield, but when you look at they're quite wing heavy, they're quite fullback heavy, aren't they? Especially with Trent and that kind of thing. So I think decision players, central midfielders out wide to use their skills of pressing and that kind of thing really helped us. Moreno for Williams was an interesting one. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know. I think I would have probably stuck with Williams and Aina. But again, absolute masterclass. Moreno was fantastic. And then when Williams came on and Aina swapped back to left back, again, great work, wasn't it? Yeah, it was such an interesting game to see that we got out of that first half and we were, obviously, you're still very much in it. There was a couple of counter-attacking chances. You made a couple of comments to me around Morgan Gibbs-White trying too much, but I think I thought about this in the kind of 4 days since. I was thinking, actually, was he trying too much, or was he actually the only person allowed to try anything? So you get the ball, give it to Morgan. He's in that role behind Chris Wood. You lot move about him, let him try something, because we definitely saw a change in the second half and the substitutes made.
Yeah, I think statistically Liverpool probably were technically dominant. And the words that I kept saying to you were, it's a matter of time, because you feel the sort of pressure and momentum building, and you know that for a team to get anything at Anfield, they need to be completely on it for the whole of the 90 minutes. And our attention span has weakened in many games over the years. Forest have provided really promising performances, but there's just that momentary lapse, which in this league, you just get punished. And last season, it was whenever there was a mistake, we got punished pretty swiftly.
Sorry, just jump in. This season, the 2 home games, great performances, but they both ended in 1-1 draws.
Yeah, which is mad now that we're looking back, and we could think realistically, both had 2 points dropped in them, and we could be level on points with City if we're being hypercritical, which is insane.
I think if you could very, very fairly turn one of those into a win.
Yeah, but back to the Liverpool game anyway. I think I thought it's a matter of time, because you need to be on it like for the whole game, and I was expecting the laps to come or the mistakes to come, and there was a few slight hiccups. The Sells one where he nearly dropped on his line, a bit nervy. The Yates, bit naive. Luis Diaz, poached it. Whether the ball was over the line or not, I'm not too sure. Still, we rode our luck a little bit at times, but the momentary lapse never really came. Whilst Liverpool were dominant stat-wise, we reduced them. I'm not one for XG. I'm not one for big chances and stats and things like that, but I believe we reduced them to 0.87 XG, and I think typically so far this season, I think they've made like 2 or 3 big chances per game, and we've restricted them to basically less than 1. So whilst they've had a bad day, they've been not as effective. Salah's had a bad day. We had to be on it to get anything from that game. So it's not a smash and grab. It's not a ride on our luck and not getting something for deserving it. We deserved it. We completely deserved it. I think it's worth us going sort of bit by bit. We'll talk about the back line, the midfield, the forward and the subs, and we'll sort of deconstruct it bit by bit, because I think there's some really special mentions, and for us to get anything from that game, every single player had to perform exceptionally. Nobody could be less than a 7 out of 10, and I think everybody performed to an exceptional level. So Liverpool were technically dominant, but I still think we very much deserved it. And the point about Gibbs-white, we can go into it a bit later when we talk about the forwards, but I think on the ball, he didn't have his best game. He was frustrating me slightly, just because a game like that, you need to hold on to the ball or do something good with it. And I get that. That's what makes him special, that he has the creative license to try things, and sometimes it will work. But watching sort of a lot of the game back, I think one of his most important and influential things that I didn't take into account on the actual day was his runs. I think he pulled defenders out. Him and Chris Wood were almost running in tandem to draw defenders, and I think that became more important later on when we had Alanga and Hudson-Odoi on. Even for Hudson-Odoi's goal, Gibbs-White runs across and almost makes the defender have to think. So I don't think it was Gibbs-White's best game. It certainly wasn't a bad game, but that's just if I'm being hypercritical. But anyway, let's go bit by bit. Let's deconstruct our thoughts. I guess let's start in defence. How do you think Sells did in this game?
Apart from the obvious mistake, I thought he was very solid. He makes that, that very simple but important save from who was it who put the header? I can only remember the cross in, the outside of the foot cross. I can't remember who did the actual header.
Was it Jota, maybe?
Yeah, Jota, yeah. It makes the, it was important, but in my opinion, simple save. It's nice to have a goalkeeper that, again, the one gaff that he made didn't actually cost us a goal, and he recovered pretty well. But it's just nice to have a goalkeeper that you don't have to worry about, isn't it? He's not the best shot stopper in the world, but he's certainly not the worst. Doesn't try anything particularly fancy. Never lets us down. Always 7 out of 10. Just thank Christ for that, right?
Yeah, just completely solid, and that's what you need him to be. Solid, makes the saves when he needs to. Whether they're routine, doesn't matter. He still made them. We've had keepers last season that wouldn't have made them. Really unsure what happened when he had that momentary slip.
Very weird.
But thankfully, it was just a bit of a blip. It didn't affect him. But yeah, solid. He showed up when we needed him to, and that's all you can really ask for a keeper. You don't want him to try silly things. Did what he needed to do.
Yeah. So the back line then, JJ. So Olayin at right back, Nikola Milenkovic, Murillo centre backs, and Alex Moreno left back. Talk to me.
Just exceptional. Every single one of them was exceptional, and I think there's a few contenders for man of the match within this back four. I think you could make a case for basically all of them. But if this back four can stay fit, can stay consistent, we're in for a real treat this season again. Let me just let the dog in 1 second. She's scratching the door. We're in for a real treat.
In walks Tara.
I think Moreno. She wants to say hello. Sorry. She heard the back four talk. She wants to say, who was your man of the match, Rubik?
My man of the match was Moreno.
I agree. I'd have gone for Moreno as well. I think Moreno was my man of the match. To put a clinic on Salah like that, I think was brilliant. And when I spoke to a Villa fan, I think the general consensus was he was really good at going forward, but he had a bit of defensive liability. He wasn't brilliant. That's sort of the criticism weighed at him. However, that was just a literally perfect defensive performance, and he kept Salah quiet. I think Salah did have an off day, which helps, but he was just exceptional, and he looked like a Premier League ready player that has the experience, that knows what he's doing. Put on a clinic, kept Salah quiet, brilliant. He was my man of the match, I think. Murillo was great, very standard. Some of his passing, beautiful. He is kept a little bit quieter in terms of the fans' voice this season because of how strong his centre-back pairing Milenkovic is, who is unbelievable. Captain Serbia to a clean sheet against Spain. Did an interview saying he's not bothered about Anfield because he's played in more hostile grounds, and then drops an absolute worldie of a performance. What a player. Headed away everything he needed to. Resolute, solid, really commands that back line. He might go down as the signing of the entire season, certainly for Forest. If not, you need to look wider. He's certainly, I used this joke on Twitter earlier, but he's like a suppository because he's up there. He's incredible, and you could make a case for him being man of the match as well. And then Ola Aina, he obviously was preferred over Nico Williams, and consistently great, consistently brilliant. And he also kept Diaz quiet. You know, we've had clinics, we've done clinics on these Liverpool players, and
not doing trials, mate. They're FDA approved, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. And with that back line, like I say, I just hope they stay fit throughout the course of the season, because we're going to go on to some great things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. So I want to move on to the midfield and talk to the people about James Ward-Prowse and Ryan Yates. I love Ryan Yates with all my heart, and that is not something that I thought I'd be sat here saying 4 years ago. He's whatever we need him to be, isn't he? Whatever we need him to be. Start of this season, he looked more box to box again, getting a bit more forward, getting on the ball. And then he goes to Anfield wearing the captain's armband, and he just rattles 60,000 Scousers into oblivion. What more do you want from your captain? What you know, if we'd have popped up with a back post header in the 93rd minute to make it 2-0, then I think I'd have just spontaneously combusted, JJ. James Ward-Prowse, sensational on his debut. It's nice knowing that every ball in the box is going to be quality. Played a full 90. I think he wins the ball back to get the counter-attack going for our goal. I'd have to watch.
I think it might have started with Milenkovic, but he certainly might have played a part.
Am I thinking of the one before that where Alanga goes over the bar?
Quite possibly, yeah.
But I just grew into the game, grew into the way Forest play. Well, he didn't grow into the way Forest play. He dropped straight in and, you know, filled that central midfield gap straight away, which is, you know, if the news about Sangare is true, who I thought was having a really good start to the season, then that's fantastic, especially with Danilo out as well. But yeah, those two were absolutely incredible. And, you know, again, what more do you want in a away performance at Anfield?
Yeah, I think Ryan Yates' performance is a hark back to yesteryear of prime Barclays. I think he Roy Keaned it, didn't he? He made McAllister look soft as shit.
Yeah.
How pathetic did McAllister look? Really embarrassing. Spent most of the time on the floor crying. And I think what Ryan Yates does so well is disrupt. But he's more than that to the game. And I think Liverpool fans will classify him and sort of typecast him as a bit of a brute that starts and stops a game from disrupting, which he definitely does. And
that's fair.
Has ability to do.
Fair, yeah.
But he knows his role, and that is to win the ball and move it on to someone more capable. And go on.
Sorry, I'd just like to say, if Liverpool fans want to make that comment, I will say one name back to them, and that's Jordan Henderson, because that's all he ever did.
Yeah. I was actually really annoyed by the Arne Slot's stop-start thing that he was on about in his post-match, because they had more fouls than we made. Yeah. So, you know, if it went their way, I'm sure they wouldn't mention it. And I know a Liverpool fan, unfortunately. He messaged me saying, "What does Ryan Yates even do?" I think they're just wound up by him. I think that just shows what a great performance he's had. Ward-Prowse, I think I fell for the sort of set piece merchant that everyone was talking about, that if we could only just bring him on to take a set piece and then sub him off again like American football. And I think I half forgot who he actually was and fell for that stuff, because he just looked so comfortable, so easy, made everything look easy. He had a brilliant performance. You know, this is his first game for Forest. He looks like he fit in really well. His set piece delivery, obviously, we all know how great it is. It's lovely to get a set piece and not just think this ain't going to go anywhere. And whilst we didn't really capitalise from it, you can see promise already. This is early days. Once we sort of get used to him actually being able to provide good balls in, then, we could score a few more set piece goals this season. But he looked at home in that midfield. And like you say, no Sangare, no Danilo. That could be a huge problem for a team. But these two stepped up to the plate, and I'm now less worried going forward with those two out that there's not anyone there to sort of fill that gap.
Yep. I mean, I'd just like to point out that I would have said Ryan Yates is man of the match.
You can make a case for it. I think you can make a case for a lot of them. I'm interested to hear yours for Ryan Yates.
Well, I mean, it's just captain's performance. Like, literally, if you could, I think your point around classic Barclaymans. Now, please don't think that I'm comparing him to Roy Keane, but it was a Roy Keane-esque performance in that he's gone in there and he's clearly not the technical footballer that Roy Keane was, because I think that gets overlooked with Roy Keane a lot of the time, because he was a thug, but he was also a tremendous footballer. But captain's performance, mate, he wore that armband like it was tattooed on, not made out of elastic, which is all you could ever ask for, isn't it?
It is, and it always does wind me up when people sarcastically say that Ryan Yates is only in the squad because he lives and breathes for the shirt and was local. But tell me why that's a bad thing. It's not.
Yeah, and I think a fair point to make would be that, and this is something that I will categorically state I just didn't see until Steve Cooper took in charge. But there is a reason that manager after manager after manager after manager picks, plays, starts, captains him.
Yeah. I'm fully turned around on him. I didn't want to see him anywhere near Forest years ago, but the turnaround is something incredible, and he seems to improve year on year as well. I think if he can just add a few more goals from his speculative shots outside the box, then I think we're on to a good little player there. So does his job perfectly. He knows what he needs to do. There's a reason Nuno's picked him, and he's done it perfectly. So, I mean, like I say, there's loads of players you can make a case for man of the match. I certainly wouldn't disagree if he was given it.
Yeah. Now, I think the front four, JJ, I think it's best to look at in three parts. So part one is the starting 11 of Dominguez right wing, Gibbs-white behind the striker, Anderson left wing with Chris Wood up top. Part two is Anthony Elanga coming on for Elliot Anderson and Callum Hudson-Odoi coming on for Nico Dominguez. And part three is Gibbs-white and Wood going off for Morato and Jota Silva. So part one, which is Anderson, Gibbs-white, Dominguez and Wood. Talk to me about the starting four.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised to see Dominguez in the squad, because he's largely been not really favoured by Nuno. And sort of hasn't really been around starting lineup. And I almost thought he might be going. He might be moved on. I think he's a brilliant player. I really like him. His tenacity, his pressing. He's a really dynamic player. And he does actually add a bit of a goal threat at times as well. But I think it's a little bit where it's been hard to nail down an actual position, because I think he does some really good work in the centre of the park, but then he's also utilised out wide. But then he's almost everywhere anyway, isn't he? He's a bit of a harrier. So surprised to see him, but another great game from him. I think he's reminded people why he was heavily involved earlier last season. Another great performance. Anderson, he's sort of quickly becoming one of my favourite players at the minute. I didn't know too much about him. I knew he was a good prospect, a good talent, but I didn't expect the impact that he would make so early. Obviously, I think he won Player of the Month for his first month. He's a really tidy player, and he looks like a player that has that Premier League experience. He doesn't look like a player that's had, a few appearances off the bench or in bit parts for Newcastle. He looks brilliant. I think we've done, to get him for the amount we have and get rid of Vlachodimos in return strange but incredible business. We've done very well from that. So again, he was brilliant, and he's going to be really important to our midfield going forward. He can also, play a few roles, not just in the middle of the park. He can go out wide, he can drift in. So fantastic player. And then Gibbs-white and Wood, I think it writes itself, done it. I don't think they were both as effective as they could be, but they needed to do what they needed to do. I think Chris Wood possibly could have, stayed on side a few times. But, he did what he needed to do. Surprised that Tyrone didn't get a look in at all. I thought that maybe we'd utilise his strength and he'd hold up the ball and bring other players in. But I think it's good that Chris Wood has, retained faith, been given the nod, and played in New Zealand earlier in the week and recently flew back. So it's not just the Liverpool players that have been out on international duty, Mr. Slot, or all the people trying to make excuses for Liverpool. We had quite a few people out, including Chris Wood, who flew a long way. So, I think obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing. I'd have loved to have seen Hudson-Odoi and Elanga start, but I think every single one of them showcased why they were in that and pulled off the tactical masterclass perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they all played their part. I think we touched earlier on why they were there. They were there to hustle and harry and make life uncomfortable for Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold, and to help the fullbacks double up on Mo Salah and Luis Diaz, which I think are Liverpool's key. With how good a footballer Trent is, that's absolutely a key area, isn't it? And then when you move into kind of stage two of what we're talking about, which was Callum Hudson-Odoi for Dominguez and Anthony Elanga for Elliot Anderson, you then sit there and you go, Trent can't defend. I think Trent's a wonderful footballer, but playing him at right back is mind-bending to me. He can't defend, and now he's got to play against Callum Hudson-Odoi. There's a reason they brought Connor Bradley on within 5 minutes to play right back. Not that he did much better. Andy Robertson, wonderful attacking fullback. He's not bad defensively, but he's just had 60 minutes of frustration. So what's he going to be able to get out of it, type thing? And I just think it was the perfect time to make those changes in the 54th and 61st minute, giving them enough time to actually be effective in the game, rather than, sometimes you put them on and they've got 20 minutes left and you think, some players take a bit of time to get going, don't they? But, he's let them affect the game. And again, it feels like this is a recurring theme for me with this game, is what more could you ask for from two wingers coming on? They, there was that chance for Elanga where he's kind of let back on the shot where we counter-attacked, and, Callum Hudson-Odoi's got the ball down the left wing, skinned Bradley inside out, straight past him, dropped it inside for Chris Wood, one touch off to Morgan Gibbs-White, one touch out wide to Anthony Elanga, one touch past his left back, and it should at least be on target. I'm not suggesting he should bang it in the back of the net, but it should be at least on target, make Alisson do something. And then, probably 5 minutes later, we do the exact same again, the other way around. Wonderful ball out wide from Elanga to Hudson-Odoi straight across the back line. And it's a Callum Hudson-Odoi special. Shut up and take my money, right?
Yeah, trademark. And what more could you ask for from them? I think Elanga in his post-match interview said him and Hudson-Odoi were on the bench saying to each other, when we go on, we're going to make an impact. And that they did. I think, and that again, I talked about the depth and the exciting squad that Forest have now. If you're a Liverpool player who's been frustrated for 60-odd minutes and then you see Hudson-Odoi and Elanga come on, their opponents will fear them, I think. Yeah. Elanga's sheer pace and Hudson-Odoi's sheer technical ability. I think moving Trent, I know Trent's not the greatest defender, but putting Connor Bradley solo on Hudson-Odoi is a massive tactical mistake. And I'm glad they made it.
Going to track back as well.
Yeah, you just know, they've obviously not done the homework there, because largely so far Hudson-Odoi has been sort of doubled and tripled up on, and no surprise that the game where he was left alone with one-on-one. He absolutely skinned his man multiple times and made a real positive impact. And I actually think all the media and pundits will talk about Gibbs-White being our most important or best player. And I'll be honest with you, I'm starting to float towards the idea of that's not being true. I think it's Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think he's quietly become such an important player to us. And the fact we got him for such a minimal fee is mind-blowing. He's really good. He's in a rich vein of form. He's getting minutes. Chelsea, I think, are daft letting him go. But he just didn't hit those heights because he never had a regular run of games or couldn't stay injury-free. Now he's injury-free and has a regular run of games. You can see why he was touted to be so much years ago. Yep. Top talent, really important, and he's capable of the trademark. It's almost harks back to Arjen Robben-esque, doesn't it? You know what he's going to do, but you can't stop it. You know what I mean? And you can try and stop it.
Yeah,
go on.
Damien Duff as well used to, didn't he?
Yeah, you know what's going to happen, but you can't stop it. And even if he is doubled up on and he isn't able to make that impact, he's still making the impact by being doubled up on because he allows other players to come into the game. He's a really important player, so I hope he can stay fit again. Alanga, for me, I think he had a good positive appearance. Yeah. I think he should have got that shot on target if we're being critical. But he makes up for it more than enough for bending that ball around to Hudson-Odoi to set up the goal. Great vision, great ball. It reminded me a bit of a Gibbs-White ball as well. Caught it around the two defenders. And when Hudson-Odoi cut in, you just knew there's only one thing that's going to happen here. And it almost felt like slow motion. And I don't know about you, but I almost didn't celebrate because I didn't actually know it had gone in. I knew it was, it's going to happen. He's going to sort of lever the shot. And the way he sort of gets it inch perfect off the post most of the time is incredible. But because of how sort of stationary, how easy it was that he skinned Bradley and how stationary Alisson was, and the fact that we just scored at Anfield, it just felt like surely this isn't real. I almost didn't celebrate. I was almost just in shock, like, oh, that's just happened, absolute bedlam in the stands. That's a goal that will be remembered fondly by Forest fans for years to come. That will go down as a historic goal. But he deserved it. Like I say, I'd hate to be a defender. I'd hate to look at Hudson-Odoi in the week leading up to it, watching videos of it happening, trying to prepare for it, and him still just being able to do it. Incredible player.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wonderful. And then following the goal, I think it was around, let's have a look. So the goal was in the 72nd minute. So around 10 minutes later, we make the kind of stage 3 changes of Morato, the new centre-back come left-back from Benfica, and Jota Gibbs-White, and Jota Silva for Chris Wood. We dropped into a back 5, didn't we? Morato dropped into the back 5, and Jota Silva led the line.
I think Nico Williams came on as well, didn't he?
Yes, sorry, Nico Williams came on for Alex Moreno. So Williams went to right back, Ole to left back, and Morato dropped into the back 3 centre-backs. Jota Silva, I mean, the back, we weren't really pushed, were we? I think Murillo makes a decent block in the last couple of minutes, but I can't remember any kind of heart and mouth situation. Jota Silva, a couple of really nice touches. He wins that header from Virgil van Dijk. He wins us a couple of free kicks. We rounded that game out so nicely considering what was on the line. The quality of substitutes we can bring on is amazing. Taiwo Awoniyi didn't get off the bench. You know what I mean? It's just a really, really positive game and a positive end to it as well. Yeah,
I thought Morato did really well in his cameo. He looked solid. Certainly wouldn't be averse to seeing more of him. And God forbid anything does happen to our centre-back pairing. I think just from that brief cameo, I think I've seen enough to feel slightly confident that he can be more than adept as a backup.
Yeah.
Williams had a good substitute cameo. He's used to doing that. He's done it many times before, and it was solid. He did well. But Jota Silva, you know, I absolutely love him. I think he's there's something about him. He's a bit cult hero-esque, you know, the Portuguese Grealish. His work rate, you know, he's proper hungry, proper gets stuck in. So many times in previous seasons, we've had a Divock Origi off the bench or an Emmanuel Dennis who look like they can't really be asked to be there or don't have the talent to back it up. Whereas Jota Silva, each time so far, has grasped every opportunity he's taken, whether it's starting in a cup game or whether it's coming off a bench, whatever. You know, he looks really hungry. And the fact we're able to bring him on, I think he's going to play a really important role. And I'm really glad he didn't go to Olympiacos.
Yeah.
Sosa wasn't even on the bench here. So, you know, that's another player that we can bring on who also looks brilliant.
I imagine he'd had a long flight international break.
Yes. Although the media seems to suggest that Liverpool were the only team that had international players out. So who knows? It almost makes it seem like both teams did. But you know what I mean? Like another, if that's almost a go-to way to play away against big teams or teams that you're not expected to get much from, and your attacking options off the bench are Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, Taiwo Awoniyi, Sousa, and Jota Silva, and you've got more than comfortable midfield and defensive options to bring on should you need it. This season's recruitment has been brilliant. It was exactly what we needed it to be. We didn't need it to be chaotic like it has been previous seasons. We've almost undone a lot of the mistakes that we've made. It's got to be the best Forest squad I've seen in my lifetime. Supporting Forest, I think. I don't think. I know it is. It definitely is. So yeah, just everybody that came on to the pitch, everyone that started the game, the management put the game plan together, the fans in the crowd singing loud and egging the team on. Everybody played their part perfectly, and I think it was Nuno's day. And I was impartial whether Nuno was here this season. If we got rid of him, fine. Let's do it quickly. If he stayed, fine. Let's give him what he needs and let's give him the preseason and not get too hasty if we don't start too strong. But he's really impressed me so far this season. If you're being really critical, you look at those home games now mentally and you think, should have won them, be level 1 points to City, as we said earlier, but we're unbeaten. And the team talk's written for the rest of the season now. Yeah, any away game, any team you're playing, you can just say, look, we beat Liverpool. I think the only team that you can really not have expectations towards is City. But your team talk's written. Similar to in that championship season, we beat Arsenal, we beat Leicester in the Cup. That was Cooper's team talk. If we can beat them, we can beat any of these lot. And, you know, you ride the wave, you ride the momentum. So really positive steps for the club this season. I think, let me ask you now, whilst we're here, Jacob, obviously can't be too reactionary off the back of one win. It's a monumental win away at Anfield against Liverpool. What were your expectations going into the season? Where did you realistically see Forest finishing? And has that been amended or changed given the start that we've had? And may I remind you, if you want to include this in your answer, one more win, and we're talking 5 games into the season, one more win, and we're already on the points tally that Derby mustered in a whole season.
I think realistically for me, and I think I'm sometimes too realistic, but for me this season was probably no higher than 13th, but not in a relegation battle. I think that would be fine. Based on the start of the season, it's only based on the start of the season, I think 13th is a minimum.
Wow, interesting.
I think there are lots of, especially when you consider that, in my opinion, we should definitely have beaten Bournemouth and we could have beaten Wolves. So let's say you add 2 more points. You had 1 more win and 2 more points for the Wolves game, for the Bournemouth game, sorry, where we were desperately unlucky to concede that equaliser, and we were more than value for a win in that game, in my opinion. Which I don't think we quite were in the Wolves game, but that's another 2 points. We're probably sitting in just inside the Champions League places, maybe. I know it's 4 games, so it's kind of irrelevant, but we'll be in the Champions League places. Look, Villa are playing. Don't get me wrong, we're not at that level, but Villa are playing Champions League football tonight. This is a crazy old league, isn't it?
Yeah, and they will soon discuss the fact that we're playing Brighton, who are looked upon now as a team that, are floating towards European spots and been in Europe and look really promising. It is a crazy league. And the reason that Villa and Brighton have got there is through good recruitment and good, ambitious owners. And it looks to be like we're getting there with both. We're making good movements, positive movements with both. Looking at the Premier League table just now, the bottom 6 are currently Everton, who are yet to win, 0 points. Southampton, who looked awful to me, 0 points, not yet to win. Wolves, 1 point, and that was against us. Ipswich, 2 points. Palace, not one. Yeah, Leicester as well, also not one. There's 6 teams here that haven't won a game. I think that bottom 6 would largely be the bottom 6 that remains there most of the season. They look the weakest so far. It's only 4 games in. I'd have actually said that 13th was a really good season if we finished 13th initially. I think first goal is always 17th, and that's where we've always got to look. But from the start alone, I can't see us being there. I think we can start to flirt with the idea of maybe hanging outside the Europa Conference spots or dipping down and up into the top.
Are you talking 8th
table?
8th to 12th, JJ? Is that what you're talking?
8th to 12th, yeah. What I will say is, if we continue this momentum, if we are anywhere near the Europa Conference spots in January, I think our owner might just about dip into his pocket and go nuts, because that's what he wants, and he wants to fast track the success. So it'll be really interesting to see where we are around Christmas. I think the league will stabilise. We'll get a really good idea of who's where around Christmas, obviously. But we've got how many points we're on now? 8, is it? Yep. 8 points. There's West Ham 14th, and they're on 4 points. We've got double the points tally of that, and then you're talking Leicester, Palace, Ipswich, 6 points below. It looks to me like we're not going to be worried about a relegation battle this season, and I think that's all we can really ask for, because what you've got to try and do in this league, and it's a really difficult league to do this, is make incremental gains. And not be doing a relegation battle is not an incremental gain. It's a huge, huge advance on where we've been. So yeah, see you in Europe, Jacob.
Well, I think I'll make a comment. So, like you say, looking for the league to stabilise. There's a bit of an unknown this season with the new format of the Champions League and the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. So all those formats are different. The group stages don't end till after Christmas now. There's more football to be played. If we can get to, the 10th game of the season, so 6 more games, and we get 2 more wins, 2 more draws, 2 losses. So I'll throw 2 losses in there, and that's another 8 points. We're on 16 points after 10 games. I'd snap your hand off of that.
Well, let me just say the upcoming fixtures are looking quite interesting. If you're looking ahead, we're going to go on to talk about Brighton in a minute. But if you're looking ahead from here on, you've got Brighton away, Fulham at home, Chelsea away, Palace at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Arsenal at home, and then Ipswich at home. So that takes us up till December.
How many games is that? Was that 7 or 8?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 games.
Do me the next 6. The next 6:
Brighton, Fulham, Chelsea, Palace, Leicester, and West Ham.
Well, we can definitely get 2 wins, 2 draws there. Definitely.
Exactly. So, the narrative here, you're starting to look at a bit of a bulk of games where we're almost in our tough period at the initial bit here. Around Christmas time, obviously we've got people like Arsenal and City to play, sure. But you start, especially when you beat Liverpool, you start to look around you and look at teams and think, you know what, we can get something. And I think, crazily, so far it's our home form that's let us down this season, and it's not even let us down. We're unbeaten, we've got draws. The away form, we've won 2 games. If we can continue the trajectory of our home performances in early seasons, who knows what could happen? It's going to be. I just think it's going to be really interesting to see if we can ride this momentum.
Well, if we get that's 16 points after, what was it? Well, that's after 10 games. That puts us on a projected total points of 61 points over the season. Last season, that would have been enough for 7th place.
Which is insane. I mean, I think it's going to be a difficult task to get that many.
Yeah. So I'm not suggesting we could do that.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that is a possibility.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get teams that have this momentum and they almost dip and they don't win for a while, but then they sort of get back up into it. But if we can early doors sort of nail our spot, not in a relegation battle, then the pressure gets taken off a little bit. You're not week by week wondering, is Steve Cooper going to get sacked? Like we have done. Is Nuno going to be out at the end of the season? You eradicate all of that. You get rid of some of these narratives, and the club can progress once we start to build upon a successful season. And at the minute, it looks like it's going to be one. Anyway, on to Brighton.
One more thing before we move on to Brighton, but that's how momentum builds, isn't it? Because you go, well, we come out of Brighton with a point in a performance, yeah. And you roll in and you go, we've got Fulham on Saturday. If that's not a winnable game, why are we in this league? You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're 6 unbeaten and you're on what would that put us on? That put us on 12 points. That's if the club, if Nuno and his coaches and the players aren't sat at the Nigel Doughty Academy putting those thoughts together in their mind and kind of like trying to manifest that within the club, then
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, it's really positive. And we'll be unbeaten. It's the unbeaten derby this weekend. It's Brighton v Forest, who have also gone unbeaten. What are your initial thoughts on this? Brighton obviously up there. I won't use the suppository joke again, but they're up there.
I think Brighton are clearly a very good, very well-run club. I think we've expressed how jealous them and Brentford before, haven't we, on the way that they're run as clubs. They're starting to invest. There absolutely has to come a point in every club's trajectory, especially ones like Brentford, ones like Brighton, where you have to, there comes a point you have to double down and keep players and start spending more than what you get in the hope of going on to success. I don't know anything about this new Brighton manager other than that he got Sampaoli promoted from Bundesliga 2 last season. He's had a really good start to the season. Correct me if I'm wrong. They had a 0-0 draw with Ipswich at the weekend, which probably puts a bit of a downer on where they'd hoped to be. But yeah, it's let's go there. Let's have a game plan. Let's try and shake it up a bit, JJ.
Exactly. And I looked at Liverpool and Brighton and thought these are 2 away games where I don't see us getting anything. If we get a point, we've done well. We've already got 3 times that before we even head to Brighton, which is far more than I thought we'd get. I went into these 2 games thinking we won't get anything, to we've beat Liverpool, why not have a go, to we've beat Liverpool and they've just drawn against Ipswich, so why not have a go? So the picture has changed quite significantly to before the international break, where these were the impending fixtures. So I'd love a point. Retain the unbeaten run, gets a really good team and carry momentum and have a good performance. There's no reason now why we can't win this game. We've seen it. And that's gonna be my sort of wording for the rest of the season now, because we've seen it. Maybe not when we play City, but still, we've seen it's possible. So why not have a go? I'd predict a point, and I think it would be a very, very good point if we get it. I think 4 points from Brighton and Liverpool would be, far bigger return than I would have expected. 6 points, even better. But I still think even 3 points, we've done really well there. So I almost think the pressure's off a little bit. It shouldn't be. I think they're going to hold themselves to a higher standard. But I think as a fan base, we can almost breathe and relax at this. We've beaten Liverpool. It's not as you have to win this. if that makes sense. I think we'll all hold ourselves to a higher standard and we will want to win it, of course. But I just think it will really settle the side to know that they've done a lot of the hard work already to progress towards the 37, 40 point barrier. So it'd be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. I think it might be I think it'll be better than the previous games we've had against Brighton, which have been largely dull, I think. I think we're going to go for it. They're going to go for it, and should be an interesting one. So I'm predicting 1-1 essentially, but
1-1.
I'd be very happy with that.
Just to say something different. 0-0.
Okay. But we're both going for a draw, and I think we'd certainly do well to get that. So fingers crossed, and would remain unbeaten.
Yes, absolutely. Now, JJ, talk to us about our sponsor.
Yes, if anyone's still with us, the sponsor is me, heavymetalfootball.co.uk. We've just launched a restock of this shirt modeled by Ruby here. It's been out of stock for a while. Get yours now before it sells out again. heavymetalfootball.co.uk. And if I minimize this, there he is, wearing it loud and proud.
Order 001, your boy.
You could look like that. So heavymetalfootball.co.uk. Thank you.
JJ, isn't it nice to sit here for 51 minutes and 30 seconds and just be like, isn't it great to be a Forest fan?
It's welcome change. I'm not used to it. It's good. Life's good.
Life's good. Well, if you're listening for the first time, please let us know how you found us.
Yeah. Sorry.
And if you come back again and 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 again, God knows we love you.